I'm excited to jump into this study together. We are going to talk today about gratitude and hope. So let me share my screen here. We'll say the blessing for study together, and then we'll jump into our discussion. So if you'd like, you can unmute and join me in the blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed is the one whose mitzvot make us holy, who commands us to engage in, to immerse in words of Torah. So one of the things I've loved about this weekly study is that it's something different every week. It's on a similar topic, a related topic of hope, but you kind of never know what you're going to get. So when our speaker, who was supposed to be teaching today, canceled, I thought to myself, what can I teach? What discussion can I lead that would relate to hope? And truly, the sky was the limit. And I zeroed in on a prayer that I have always found interesting, that has one line in the middle of it that I find confusing. And interestingly enough, that one line that's confusing has to do with hope. So I want to look together at the Modim blessing. You're all seeing my screen, right? You see where it says gratitude and hope? Okay, excellent. I want to look together at the Modim blessing, and I'll just put my cards on the table. There's a line in the middle. This whole thing is about thankfulness, gratitude, which makes a lot of sense to me from a Jewish perspective. But there's a line in the middle that's about hope, where it says, Me'olam kivinu lach. We have always put our hope in you, God. We have always hoped in you. And it always feels to me a little bit like a non sequitur in a blessing that's all about gratitude. So the question I want you to help me answer today is, what is this line doing here? What is the relationship, if any, between gratitude and hope? So I'm going to read the blessing here. This is the blessing that comes toward the end of the Amidah. Is the Modim blessing familiar to some of you? This is the second to last blessing. I see some nods. The second to last blessing in the both Shabbat and weekday Amidah. Once you've said all your warm-up blessings, and then on weekdays you've said all your bakashot, all your blessings of asking God for things, then we take a step back and we say, Modim anachnu lach. I can barely say it without bowing, because when you traditionally say it, you go Modim anachnu lach. So at the end of the Amidah, you're wrapping up your prayer, you're wrapping up your sort of me time with God. And right before we say the blessing for peace, this is how we end. So I'll read through it, and I want to get your reactions to this blessing. It says, Modim anachnu lach. We are grateful to you, that you are the eternal, our God, and God of our ancestors forever. Rock of our lives and shield of our salvation, you are the one in every generation. We give thanks to you and tell your praises for our lives which are in your hands, for our souls which are in your keeping, and for the miracles that are with us every day, or that the miracles with us in every day, and for the wonders and goodnesses that are in every moment, evening, morning, and noon. The good, for your compassion is never finished. The merciful, for your loving kindness does not have an end. Me'olam kivinu lach. We have always hoped in you. We have always put our hope in you. And then, traditionally, you go on to insert various things that you're grateful for. So this is the time where you say the passage for Hanukkah, the passage for Purim. If it happens to be Hanukkah or Purim, some congregations stop and recount things that you're grateful for. In some congregations, like I know in my congregation, there's a little moment of silence here to stop and think about, what am I grateful for? Who am I grateful for? What are the moments, the experiences, the people that I'm grateful for? And then we conclude, and for all these things, may your name be blessed and exalted, our sovereign forever. And all the living shall thank you forever and praise your name with sincerity, the God who is our deliverance and our help forever. And then we end, Baruch atah Adonai, blessed are you, eternal. Your name is goodness, and it is fitting to thank you. So that's a blessing that traditionally is recited 3 times a day. Many of us say it on Shabbat, once a week or so, or, whenever we go to Shabbat services, and it's about gratitude. So I wonder, if you can help me parse this blessing. First question is, what is the blessing saying about gratitude? How is it defining gratitude? What's the message that comes out of this blessing about gratitude in life? And then, of course, my corollary question and where we're headed is, what does this have to do with hope? Any thoughts, reactions? What do you see in this blessing when you read through it? I'll ask an even more, I think, previous question. Oh, actually, go ahead, Bob. I see your hand.
Well, this comes right after describing God as the merciful. And that makes me think of the interaction between Hashem and Moses, where he asks for show me your presence, and Hashem goes through the 13 attributes of mercy, and Moses can't see his face, just his back. So that there's something hidden, there's something missing. And when you think about mercy and you talk about it as if it really exists and applies to God, well, maybe you're just hoping that it does.
Okay. All right. So maybe you're just hoping. And that's interesting because that story about Moses is a story about a very dejected Moses, right? The golden calf has just happened. The worst didn't happen, but it's not great in that moment. And Moses says, "Let me see your face, God. Show me your presence." And God says, "You can't see my face, you can only see my back." Now, Maimonides, the Rambam, says, "What do you mean you can see God's back? God doesn't have a back." Maimonides interprets that to mean you cannot know God's essence, which would be the face of God, so to speak, but you can experience God through the things that follow from God's existence. That's what Maimonides says God's back means, the things that come about as a result of God's existence. In other words, people, relationships, experiences, moments. So you could construe that Moses story, which truly I hadn't even thought about when I brought this blessing, as a story about gratitude, or a story with a message about gratitude. Look for me, God says, in your relationships. Look for me in the people in your life. Look for me in the things that you have. Look for me in those moments of positive experience in your life. Dennis, what's your take?
So you asked us to parse this. I look at that first paragraph and it subdivides into 3 for me. First off is we thank you for being there. You are God. That's what we're thanking you for. And then the middle part is for thanking you for taking care of us in specific ways. But that kind of slides into a sense of chronology, right? It says miracles every day and wonders and goodnesses in every moment, evening, morning, and noon. And so that takes me to the third part, which is it goes on. What we've seen in the past, what we're seeing in the present goes into the future because it's never finished. It doesn't have an end. And then that connects up to hope. It's not just hope. Hope, to me, in this paragraph is very closely related to trust. Hope is not an empty wish. It's placing our trust in something that we, as in the story that Bob just brought up, we can't know for sure, right? We can only see the effects. We can only see how it impacts our lives, but it's so clear that we have always hoped in you. That's how I'm reading it.
Yeah, I appreciate that reading. And you're right. When I look at this line right here, you can see where it moves from past to future. We think of gratitude as being about the past. I am grateful for the things I already have. I am grateful for what I've experienced. But in this line, it moves from past to future. God is the good. These are names we're using for God here. The good, the Hatov, for your compassion is never finished. And the Hebrew word there for never finished is chalu, which comes from the word kol. Kol, anybody know what the word kol in Hebrew means? It means I saw Rick mouth it. It means all, right? As in kol Yisrael, ve'al kol Yisrael. So in other words, there is no all of your compassion. There's no such thing as the totality of your compassion. We say to God there. And then the merciful, for your kindness does not have an end. And the word end here, this is my translation, by the way, so you could translate it differently, is the word tamu, which means ending. It does not come to an end. So me'olam kivinu lach. Me'olam kivinu lach is actually a backwards looking statement. We have always in the past put our hope in you, but there is a sense in which it now moves forward. So that past hope breeds future hope, such as it is. Why do you suppose we have a gratitude prayer in our service? Why is it important to cultivate gratitude? Why is it important to even think in terms of thanks at all, as opposed to, asking God to grant peace, asking God to, help us be strong, etc.? What would be the purpose of such a blessing to begin with in Judaism? And by the way, if you have comments or thoughts, you can raise your hand electronically or just wave at me, and I'll be happy to call on anyone. Any thoughts? Anyone here have a gratitude practice as part of their life? What does it do for you to stop and take time to cultivate gratitude? Vicky, go ahead.
Sometimes I'm so overwhelmed with, the news, or everything that seems so heavy. I find it. I kept a gratitude journal for years, just things that I was grateful for and thankful for and appreciated, and it makes me. First of all, it makes me feel better that I have, we may have a tendency to look at the negative, but this and even the gratitude prayer makes me look at, despite everything, I'm grateful for what I do have. And I think that's important to reflect on that. At least for me, it's important to reflect on, you know, even in the past with things that were not so good, I can now reach a point where I can look at things that were okay and good and move it up currently to and look forward to, and it gives me hope and that. I think that it real I'm not sure I associate God so much with it. It's just, you know, and that's me, but it just helps me, um, gives me a sense of being cared for and secure, like Sabrina said, and just grateful for being in what I have. I have food, I have shelter, I have housing, I have clothing that I need. I give tzedakah, and I'm not going to be in the poorhouse tomorrow. I'm grateful for that. I help other people when I can, and I'm grateful that I have the capacity to do that and now and although I think we look back but I have good things in my life, and I am grateful for those. And I
Right.
think that I take a time each day to remind myself of those things.
Thank
So
you.
I think it's important.
Yeah, I appreciate that comment. Thank you. And that very personal story, or not story, but um, relationship with gratitude. I want to seize on something that Vicky said, which is you said, Vicky, despite it all, right? We all have bad stuff that's happened in our lives. Look, some of us more than others, right? But we all have that stuff. And yet we also have good stuff, right?
Right.
There is never a moment in your life when suddenly all the bad stuff stops happening. Suddenly everything's good, everything's fine. And so, in that sense, the purpose of a gratitude practice is actually to focus you on the good stuff, such as it is, which I think then is an act of hope. Because if despite it all, I feel grateful, then that actually gives me the ability to live as my best self here in the world. I just want to look at what a couple of people put into the chat. Sabrina said gratitude brings reverence and awe. And I think that reverence and awe actually are deeply connected with hope. In fact, our blessing that we're looking at here talks about miracles that are with us every day. Miracles we usually think of as being things that are awesome, right? Things that fill us with awe. We're coming up on Pesach now, so I'm starting to think about the parting of the Red Sea and that great miraculous act through which God carries us through the Red Sea to freedom. But miracles that are with us every day, that's a whole other category of miracles, right? What are miracles that are with us every day? The fact that that I woke up this morning. In fact, it's traditional to say, to start your day, the very first words are modeh ani lefanecha, or moda ani lefanecha. I am grateful to you, God, for returning my soul to me, right? So every day traditionally begins with this acknowledgement of the miracle, this acknowledgement of the fact that there is a miracle, the fact that my eyes opened this morning, in fact, my body works at least as well as our bodies do work, right? All of these are miracles, and the morning liturgy actually has a whole list of them. And some of you know that list, that litany of morning blessings that is actually for miracles. So those miracles, those blessings actually encourage us to open our eyes to awe, to feel a sense of awe in the world. Let's see, going through the chat here. Sabrina also says gratitude brings a feeling of security, of being cared for, which again is connected with hope. Rick says, I used to make a gratitude practice a pivotal part of my morning. 3 gratitudes a day. It's probably time to return to that. Me too. I've had sort of bouts of it throughout my life where I do it and then I never keep it up, but it always feels good when I'm actually doing it, better and more positive and more hopeful. Dennis, you had no, somebody had a hand up, but I lost who it was. Was there somebody that had a comment that I didn't get to? All right, well, let's move then to the realm of psychology to see. Oh no, I wanted to show you one more thing before we look at the realm of psychology. This is from the book of Genesis. Speaking of gratitude in Judaism, this is the moment of the birth of Judah. Judah is, of course, the eponymous ancestor of the Jews, of the tribe of Judah. His mother is Leah, and Judah is the last son of Leah. And this is the origin story of the name Judah. It says that she, Leah, conceived again and bore a son and declared, this time I will thank the eternal, Odeh et Adonai. And therefore she named him Yehudah. Then she stopped bearing. In other words, that was her last son. Now, I have to tell you, this is a little bit of a questionable origin story for the name Yehudah. Yehudah very clearly comes from Yud He Vav He. In other words, the name of God, right? But the Torah makes Judah's name actually about Odeh, about gratefulness. So in that sense, gratitude is absolutely baked in to Judaism, so much so that our name, the name of the Jews, comes from gratitude. And if you think about it, we have a multitude of gratitude practices in Judaism. The Modim blessing that we're looking at today, the Modeh Ani or Moda Ani blessing that you start the morning with, the very act of saying blessings over foods you eat is, in a sense, a gratitude practice. Think about the difference between, gobbling down food and stopping to say, bless you, God, for having made this food. It's a really big difference. It's a different mindset, and it sends you into the world with a different state of mind when you engage in those practices. So gratitude is baked into Judaism. And so now we turn to the realm of psychology. This is from Dr. Tiffany Salber Malachi. I got it from a website, positivepsychology.com, but you can find the same kinds of thinking in books by Martin Seligman and other positive psychology types, actually many of whom are Jewish, although not all. She quotes a study from two other psychologists, Jonathan Passmore and Lindsay Oates. She says they assert that as expectations have changed, gratitude has diminished in Western society. Possessions and health are expectations for many individuals, rather than considered personal blessings that are appreciated. Gratitude has for many been replaced by disappointment, anger, and resentment when these expected blessings either do not appear or they disappear. I suppose that's the double-edged sword of living in a world where we have such incredible technologies and medicines, right? It's not that we don't get sick. It's not that we don't, suffer, but on the whole, we are much more healthy. We expect to be healthy in a way that maybe pre-modern people didn't expect to be healthy. And that's a good thing, except when it diminishes our capacity for, or not our capacity for, but our habit for gratitude. Because, and she goes on to quote the same study, we have learned gratitude helps people focus on the positive aspects of their life. Gratitude can help build and maintain relationships with others, resulting in hope, life satisfaction, and more proactive behavior towards others. So in other words, the act of gratitude, or an act of cultivating gratitude, is in the end an act of cultivating hope. When we step back and feel grateful for what we have, what we are, what we experience, we actually enter back into the world in a more positive and more hopeful state of mind from a psychological perspective, which probably then helps us, and now this is me riffing on what she is saying, probably then helps us to bring about, to have the strength to bring about the world that we can envision. Because if you don't have gratitude, you don't have hope, then it's very hard to envision a better world. People who feel hopeless cannot envision a path toward a better world. People who feel hope, who are almost by definition, people who feel gratitude, are people who then can begin to take the steps toward building a world that's better than the one that we're in. So it's interesting, gratitude doesn't change the world at all, right? All it does is change your mindset. And then your mindset helps you to go about changing the world. Any thoughts or reaction? What's your reaction to what Dr. Salber Malachi has said? Do you agree that gratitude helps build hope? And in what way does that work? Oh, yeah, Lauren, go ahead.
I married a woman that when we got married, the reason I married her was because she had such positive thoughts about the future. And I started a number of years ago, every day, setting aside a time where I can think. It's not a long time, but it's a time when I can think about what is possible, what is possible for me and what's possible for the community in which I live and the world in general. We can always be disappointed about when things don't happen. I think that's kind of a nearsighted response to whether hope means anything or not. But hope, I think, for a person that is not as involved in looking at it through a religious point of view, gives me the opportunity to become a better human being. There's a lot of humanity in thinking about how things can be and hoping that things can be better. And again, the reality of things not working out is the reality of life. But I think that the message of hope is to continually keep the focus, keep a longer range perspective on life. And for me, that's helpful.
Yeah, I appreciate that comment. And I want to juxtapose that to what Dennis put into the chat, where he writes, we should be grateful for the good we experience, but we should be angry when the rich and powerful hoard the good for themselves and don't share equally with the rest of us. Being grateful is not enough. I agree, Dennis. It seems to me that being grateful, and maybe this is kind of what Lauren is saying, being grateful is the first step, because being grateful gives you potentially the hope that you can change the world, and then we go out and change the world, and then we try to make things better. But I think that to simply be grateful for the world as it is and never think that you have a responsibility to change it is outside of what Judaism is suggesting suggesting here, that ultimately, this must be connected with a responsibility to repair the world, a responsibility to make the world a better place than it is. Which brings me back, if I can share my screen one more time here, brings me back to our original passage, this very powerful line where we refer to God as the good, the one for your compassion is never finished, and the merciful, for your loving kindness does not have an end. And we say, we have always hoped in you because you, God, have those characteristics. But if most of our descriptions of God are actually veiled charges to us to act like God, then what's really being said here is our compassion must never be finished. Our loving kindness must never come to an end. When you see need in the world, you have the responsibility to go out and change it. And that ultimately is what our hope is supposed to lead us to do. So the half hour went quickly. I want to thank everybody for your discussion and for helping inspire me through a blessing that, I have to be honest, I had always been a little confused about. Next week, we study with Rabbi Brian Stoller of Great Neck, New York. Same bat time, same bat channel. And I look forward to seeing all of you then. Thank you.